Hey, everybody, Dr. Grant here. And today we're going to be talking about how to end really ADHD symptoms naturally for you specifically. And the best way I could share this with you is I put together like three case scenarios that I see common over and over and over again when I'm working with a lot of adults with ADHD. And that's just something that I see consistently. And so there's lots of different variances, but I came up with like three that I see that are very common. So to dive right into it, the very first scenario, if this is you, if you are someone that is taking ADHD medication and it has been working for you, but you still feel that is somewhat lacking, like there's maybe something missing, that you're still having some focus issues, maybe even a little bit of anxiety with the medication, and it's just not quite enough. And so, usually, the case with this, to kind of share you kind of a case study on this situation, this very particular individual, and this is something I see common over and over again, where the medication maybe is working, but it isn't just quite enough. And so this individual, was having those kind of symptoms of not being motivated, not being driven, not being focused, can kind of function, but then it would just kind of die off kind of later in the day, like the medication. So it wouldn't last as long. And so this is where further investigation is really kind of important. And so some of the common things I do see when you're in this type of scenario, in this case, if you're scenario number one, is it will present like this. So like this individual, like the patient that I did have when we ran looking at some neurotransmitters, some of the big ones that are like classic ADHD, and this is why probably ADHD medication is working, but maybe isn't quite enough. And it's because, PA levels are going to be low. Same with tyramine, dopamine levels are going to be low. Norepinephrine and epinephrine are some of the really big ones where I do see that can be an issue. And so if that is the case, we need to look at the neurotransmitter pathway, especially when it comes to dopamine. Okay. And so if the dopamine is an issue, and this is classic ADHD, where you did find the ADHD medications are working, it's probably because you do have low dopamine, but it isn't quite enough. Sometimes the medication isn't just enough. Sometimes you need supportive treatment to prolong the duration of the medication. And so with this person, a patient of mine, he was in his mid 30s, and we needed to implement where he had low PA levels. So we need to add DL-phenylalanine for him. Okay. He also had lower tyramine levels. So usually if there's low tyramine, it's usually because P5P, which is an activated form of vitamin B6. So in his case, I won't go into the micronutrients just because I got three case studies to go over with you guys today. But he had low vitamin B6 and some other B vitamins. So we added a B complex to help with actually the process building tyrosine levels. His tyrosine levels were fine. So if he had low tyrosine, then yeah, I would probably implement L-tyrosine. But I didn't in this case. I did was more focused on the actual conversion PFIP, which is he had low vitamin B6. And so the other thing that also, because he had low dopamine levels and norepinephrine and epinephrine, adding something like L-theanine can help bring those levels up. But also Dopa Boost. What I love about Dopa Boost is it helps increase dopamine. It helps also increase tyramine and tyrosine and norepinephrine and epinephrine. So it's a combination that I did like to put. And so once I implemented that, he felt like with his medication, with adding these few things, really made a big difference where it prolonged his focus, his motivation, and his drive, and also helping with his memory throughout the day, just by tweaking these few things. Now, that's scenario number one, and you can be able to get those kind of great results if you're able to understand the investigation of really what's truly out of balance for you specifically, like this patient of mine. Now, scenario number two is maybe the ADHD medications have not been working. They haven't worked, and you actually are feeling more stressed and also tired. So you have a combination of feeling stressed, tired. This is very common that I see all the time with adults that have ADHD, is they can feel more stressed and tired because they're reaching more burnout. And so what we have to look at here, so in this case situation, is something I see common a lot. This happens all the time where the medication isn't working and you're feeling tired and you're feeling stressed. And so with this patient of mine, we ran these tests, and the interesting thing is, yeah, his PA levels were low, but his dopamine were just fine. In fact, they were getting to a point where, because taking the medication, it probably would elevate it too high for him. And that would make him feel more stressed agitated and irritated. And so that wouldn't be a good situation. His tyramine levels were also elevated. So these elevated levels can cause symptoms of agitation, irritation, and being stressed all the time, just like this individual was. And the other thing to also implement here is the big one also is the other elevated levels, such as his norepinephrine and epinephrine. When these levels are elevated, you are going to feel more agitated and stressed and also can reach burnout significantly. So it's something you have to keep in mind here that it isn't the same for every person. This is why I'm giving you kind of like what I see of these three cases that are very similar that that I see all the time, but it also there's variances even between these three different scenarios. But I'm trying to do the best I can to kind of give you see what I most likely see for the most part. So in this situation, I also wanted to make sure address that we're looking at why he was also very tired. And so I wanted to make sure that we're running cortisol, and sure enough, his cortisol levels were depleted. But also, there was a little spike at night, and this caused some issues with his sleep. So I added ashwagandha just a little bit at night before going to bed. But then the adrenal desiccated, I added first thing in the morning and then mid afternoon to help increase the energy. And this made a night difference for him. And then also, I wanted to make address the D-L-phenylalanine situation because PA levels were low. Also, we did check some micronutrients and also his vitamin B6 and vitamin B12, and also vitamin B1 were low. So out of B complex. Now, to combat the elevated dopamine levels and the elevated norepinephrine, epinephrine, rhodiola is a great one to implement to bring those levels down, as well as along with L-theanine. So I like to do those combos together to use something naturally to bring those levels down. So once we implemented those, he felt great. I mean, he didn't feel stressed or agitated. His energy improved, his focus improved, and he found that he really the medication he didn't need to be dependent on because it actually was making things worse for him. And so over time, we didn't do cold turkey. Over time, working through his prescribing doctor was able to deplete that and be able to really just do things more naturally to be able to have the optimal focused mind and not have the stress and not feel tired all the time, which was great. Now, scenario number three. So maybe you might be in a situation where also the medications aren't working, but you're feeling more depressed as well as feeling more tired. So I see this a lot, especially with women with ADHD. It's very common and it can also happen with males, but I do see it very common with women. So with this case scenario, is a lady in her 40s. And the thing that we had that when we ran looking at the neurotransmitters amino acids, her PA levels were elevated. Her dopamine levels were elevated. Her 3-MT levels were elevated, which is a breakdown of dopamine. And then also her norepinephrine, which is a breakdown of norepinephrine, were elevated, and then had low levels of epinephrine, which, when we see these are low, along with also her low serotonin, you're going to feel more depressed. So this is different, right? This is why it's so critical to be testing and investigating to see really what is going on here, because not one person is the same with their ADHD. And so with this case, there's two things I needed to implement was L-tryptophan and 5-HTP to help improve the serotonin levels. The other thing, I think, yeah, so those are the ones there is the ones need to implement to help improve her serotonin levels. And this improved her mood significantly where she wasn't having those depressive symptoms. On top of that, because of also the elevated dopamine levels, added L-theanine like the previous case, I also did test for her vitamin D. So you can see right here, vitamin D is actually critical from taking tryptophan to 5-HTP to serotonin. And her vitamin D levels were significantly low, so we added vitamin D. It's also a really important part for actually a coenzyme and a conversion to help him build up serotonin levels. So because of doing so, that really did help significantly with her depressive symptoms, but also implemented B complex as well because vitamin B6 levels were low and vitamin B2 were low. And those are also important cofactors that we need for a lot of these different neurotransmitters for the serotonin neurotransmitter pathway. Now, also when we tested, I wanted to make sure because of also her feeling tired, testing her cortisol as well. And hers was interesting. Hers were fine in the morning, but the mid-afternoon crash and even early evening, her levels were really low. Now, the thing is, you don't want to be taking adrenal at night because that can spike your cortisol levels a little too high and that can keep you up at night. So I just only did it just first thing in the morning with her. Usually, that kind of duration of kind of more the early afternoon to kind of give that energy as much as she needs. And then also there was a little bit of elevation here. Of course, I also added ashwagandha just a little bit to help her sleep at night as well. So once implementing those things, there was one other thing that I wanted to make sure because even with her depressive symptom, I didn't mention this too. She was also dealing with a lot of mood swings and changes, and it's really important to also, especially for women, to be testing for hormones because hormones can really impact the HD brain, can impact your focus, cause brain fog, fatigue, all sorts of situations. And in her case, her progesterone levels were definitely low, and also her DHEA, which is a precursor for estradiol and testosterone. So I added a natural progesterone cream as well as DHEA, and this actually helped with things that she was actually experiencing at night with hot flashes. So this and also low libido. And on top of that, it did help a lot with her energy and just her mood changes by just implementing these things. So because we really truly investigated, like it really did make a difference for her where she didn't have the depressive symptoms anymore. She had the better energy. She could focus and she was functioning better at work and she just was happier overall because it's about investigating really truly what are the imbalances specifically for you. And that is the key to really ending your AC symptoms altogether is because you have to identify really what is going on for you. And even though those are three case scenarios, there's a lot of variances that I work with, but those are the most common ones that I typically see and what I usually will implement. But there's always variances to each person, and especially what testing that we need to do specifically, because everyone has different medical history background. So, I mean, there's other things that also are really important to implement is a few things I want to mention here. Eliminating external stressors. So if there's things in your life that are happening that are causing stressors in your life that are sabotaging your health, it's important to eliminate those. Implementing exercise. As far as scenario one, because of the dopamine situation, so this is classic ADHD, usually it really does need to incorporate more higher proteins, veggie diet. Usually those two are the most important. With case scenario 2 and 3, where there was more depressive and anxiety situation, and because of the imbalances they had, it's usually needs more complex carbs, especially with someone who has low serotonin levels. And also proteins, as well as healthy fats and veggies are going to be big ones. Coaching is another great thing to be held accountable to follow through with the treatment plan. That are things that I do implement with all my patients and clients to make sure that they are following through and getting the results. So, I mean, if you would like to actually find out this information for yourself and finally actually tackle your own ADHD symptoms, it's one thing to look at the information of other people's case scenario, but you are unique. In order to identify what's going on with you specifically, it does require further investigation. So if you'd really like my help, I mean, the best thing to do is booking a consultation with me where we can actually spend time where I can look at your medical history, see what's going on, and look at really what are going to be the best types of lab testing to implement for you and also putting an action plan together. So what I'm offering is, typically people don't understand the expenses of going to medical school. It's really expensive and you don't need to go to medical school and become a doctor to figure that out. I spent over $500,000 in medical school and continuing education. And most people also don't realize this too, is that you will spend in research they have found that you will spend over $1 million in your lifetime on, well, not spend, but actually waste opportunities because you didn't actually treat your EC correctly, of missed jobs, getting fired, missed opportunities, not being productive and efficient. And I don't certainly want that to happen to you. So the best thing to do is book a consultation with me where I can actually spend time understanding your medical history to see the ins and outs of the things that you're struggling with and to be able to really identify what testing is going to be best for you and putting an action plan together. And so that's a $750 value, booking a consultation with me for 45 minutes, as well as I do an in-depth client questionnaire that you'll be filling out. That's $197 value to really find the blind spots in your situation. I also, if you do purchase today, you get access to our HD Health course. That's $297 value. And it's all over $1,000 in value, and you get that all today for just $297. So all you have to do is just click on the link in the description below. It's right there. Once you've clicked on the link, it will take you to this page right here. You'll put in your information. You'll pick your date and time. Once you've done that, you'll fill out your information, and then it'll take you to this landing page where there's two really important things you need to keep in mind. Once you've purchased, you should get two emails. One, confirming your appointment that should have your Zoom link provided. The second is the online, giving you access to Practice Better, which is our client portal. That is where you're going to fill out your information, the client questionnaire. Make sure you do that way before your appointment. And then also, if you do have any past labs in the last year, like standard labs from your previous doctors, go ahead and upload those. It's not a requirement, but if you do have them, send them to me so I can look over those. Make sure to block out 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes we need to go a full hour. If you have further questions that I need, I'll usually block that out, and then just show up early. So if you really want to truly tackle and have me help you out to be able to understand really what is going on with your own ADHD symptoms and finally eliminate them, then go ahead and book that consultation. Click on the link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for attending, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Thanks. Bye.